All right, so today we're diving deep into something really fascinating happening in Brazil's capital, Brasilia. We're going to explore their unique approach to teaching kids how to read. And the big question is it some kind of rigid official method, or is it something way more interesting, like a living conversation between two of the biggest ideas in education?
So let's just get right to it. If you're a teacher, a parent, or just curious about education, you're probably wondering, is there a single trademarked Brasilia method for literacy?
And the answer is a clear and simple no. There isn't. What you'll find instead is a philosophy. It's a whole way of thinking about how kids learn, and that, honestly, is so much more powerful than a rigid set of rules.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the core philosophy, the big why. Then, we'll see how they put that into action with a system called BIA. After that, we'll meet the two brilliant minds that guide the day-to-day teaching. We'll compare their ideas, see where they connect, and then add in the special local touch that really makes it all work. Let's jump in.
Okay, first things first, the philosophy of Brasilia. You know, before you can understand what they do or how they do it, you have to get the why. And it's all laid out in their guiding document, the Currículo and Movimento, which translates to Curriculum in Motion. Think of it like this. Their entire approach is held up by two huge pillars. The first comes from the psychologist Vygotsky, and it's a simple but profound idea. We learn from each other. Learning is social. The second pillar comes from the Brazilian thinker Saviani. His idea is that the whole point of school is to give every single kid access to powerful, organized knowledge, the kind of knowledge that can actually help them transform their world. Okay, so you've got this really powerful philosophy, but how do you build a school system around it? Well, that brings us to the BIA, the Bloco Inicial de Alfabetización, or the Initial Literacy Block. This is the what? The actual structure that brings those big ideas to life. And this is just so smart. The BIA basically treats the first 3 years of school as one single unbroken journey. A kid can't fail first grade or second grade. Instead, the assessment is constant, it's ongoing, and it's all designed to help the teacher figure out what that child needs next. There's just one big goal for everyone. By the end of that third year, the child is a reader and a writer.
So we have the philosophy, the why, and we have the BIA structure, the what. But what about the how? I mean, what's going through a teacher's mind every single day when they're actually teaching a child to read and write within the system?
Well, the answer lies in the brilliant dialogue between these two absolute giants of literacy. On one side, you've got Emilia Ferreiro, the psychologist, and on the other, Magda Soares, the pedagogue. You could say their ideas are the engine that powers the daily practice in Brasilia's classrooms. Let's start with Ferreiro. Think of her as the scientist of the duo. Her work was absolutely groundbreaking because she showed the world that kids are not empty vessels. They are active, brilliant thinkers who are constantly creating their own theories about how writing works long before anyone teaches them. Her whole focus was on that one question: what is going on inside that child's head? And what she discovered was just incredible. She found that kids move through these predictable stages of thinking. They start with just scribbles, then they move to this amazing syllabic stage where they might use one letter to stand for a whole syllable. This framework she created is an amazing diagnostic tool. It gives teachers a map to see exactly where a child is on their path to literacy. Now, listen up, because this is probably the most crucial thing to understand about Ferreiro's work. She never, ever created a teaching method. She was a scientist describing a process. She gave teachers a way to understand a child's thinking, not a recipe for how to teach. So much confusion comes from missing this one point, but it's something they really get in Brasilia.
And that's our cue for Magda Soares. If Ferreiro gives teachers the diagnostic map, Soares gives them the teaching tools. She's all about the classroom. Her big idea is captured in this one word, alfabetizar. It basically means you have to teach the technical code of writing and the social purpose of writing at the exact same time.
So for Soares, these are two sides of the very same coin. You've got alfabetização, which is the nuts and bolts, learning that this letter makes that sound. But then you have letramento, which is the whole point, using that code to read a comic book, write an email, or understand a recipe. And her big argument was you can't separate them. You have to do both together from day one. So this brings us right to the heart of it. You've got these two powerful perspectives. You might be wondering, is this a fight? Is it Ferreiro versus Soares? Well, no.
In Brasília, they see it as a dialogue, a partnership, where each one makes the other stronger.
And here's a really great metaphor to help you lock this in. Think of Emilia Ferreiro as the soils engineer. Her job is to analyze the ground, the child's mind, and tell you exactly what it's made of. Then you have Magda Soares, the urban architect. She takes the engineer's report and designs the actual building, the teaching practice, that's perfectly suited for that specific ground and for the community's needs. Let's break that down even more. Ferreiro comes from psychology. Her question is, how do we learn? Soares comes from pedagogy. Her question is, how do we teach? And look at how they see errors. For Ferreiro, an error isn't wrong. It's a constructive hypothesis, a window into the child's thinking. For Soares, that exact same error is a signal, a flashing light for the teacher that says, hey, here's where I need to step in and help.
But it is so important to see where they were completely in sync. They both hated those old, boring, meaningless drills. They both saw the child as a smart, active participant in their own learning. They both believed classrooms should be filled with real books, real recipes, real comics. And above all, they both saw literacy as a fundamental right, the key to a real democracy.
But the story doesn't quite end there. The Brasília model has this extra layer, this special local flavor that comes from experts at the incredible University of Brasília, the UNB. They add some really crucial pieces to the puzzle. So you've got two key figures here. First, Stella Maris Bortoni, Ricardo, who brings in the idea of linguistic variation. Basically, she teaches that a kid's mistake might just be their home dialect, and that you have to respect that language first before you can teach the standard form. Then there's Benigna Villas-Boas, who really provides the thinking behind the BII's assessment system, the idea that tests are there to help a kid learn, not to label or punish them. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. The philosophy, the BIA system, the big ideas from Ferreiro and Soares, the local touch from UNB. How does it all come together in the end?
This timeline really tells the whole story. Back in the 80s, you had the big disruption. Ferreiro came along and completely changed the game. Then in the 90s and 2000s, you got the synthesis from Magda Soares, who showed everyone how to put these ideas into practice. And today, the curriculum in Brasília is the living result of that journey, a constant dialogue between diagnosing how a child thinks and designing the best way to teach them.
And that really leaves us with this final, powerful idea to think about. What the Brasília model shows us is that maybe, just maybe, the best way to teach isn't a rigid cookie-cutter method at all. Maybe the best way to teach is a conversation, a constant, lively conversation between theories, between teachers and students, and between learning the code and finding the joy in using it.